Imagine standing at the edge of an ancient desert, the wind whispering secrets older than time itself. The sky burns with the last light of the setting sun, and for a moment you feel it. Something beyond sight, beyond understanding, something divine. What if I told you that the greatest story ever told isn't just a story at all? That hidden within the pages of the Bible are clues to a reality so profound, it reshapes how we see existence itself. This isn't just about faith. This is about encountering the divine in ways that defy logic, yet feel undeniably real. Welcome to Biblical Series, The Phenomenology of the Divine. Today we're diving into the mystery of how God reveals himself, not just in Scripture, but in the very fabric of human experience. This is about the moments when the infinite brushes against the finite, when the ordinary cracks open and something other shines through. Think of Moses at the burning bush, Elijah hearing the still small voice, or Jacob wrestling the angel. These weren't just events, they were encounters, raw, personal, and utterly transformative. But here's the question that haunts me. What if these encounters weren't just for them? What if the divine is still speaking, still reaching out, still meeting people in ways we've forgotten how to recognize? The Bible is filled with patterns, sacred repetitions of divine interaction that echo across history. And if we learn to see them, we might just find that God isn't distant. He's closer than we think. In this episode, we'll explore the phenomenology of the divine, the study of how God appears in human experience. We'll trace the footsteps of prophets, kings, and ordinary people who found themselves face to face with the holy. And we'll ask the dangerous question, could this happen today? Some say miracles are a thing of the past. Others claim they've seen the impossible. Who's right? But before we go further, I need to warn you, this isn't a safe discussion, because once you start looking for the fingerprints of the divine, you might start seeing them everywhere. And that changes everything. To understand how the divine interacts with humanity, we have to go back, way back to the very first moments where God stepped into human history. Think about Adam and Eve in the garden. It wasn't just a paradise, it was a place of direct encounter. God walked with them, spoke with them, face to face. But then, something broke. The intimacy was lost. And ever since, humanity has been searching, reaching, trying to find its way back to that connection. Fast forward to Abraham, a man called out of nowhere, told to leave everything behind because God had a promise for him. And here's where it gets fascinating. God doesn't just tell him, he appears to him, as a voice, as a visitor, even as fire in the night. Abraham didn't just believe in some distant deity, he knew God because God showed up. And that's the pattern we see again and again. Moses at the burning bush, Isaiah in the temple, Ezekiel by the river. These weren't just spiritual ideas, they were real experiences that shook these men to their core. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. Why does it feel like these encounters stopped? Or did they? Maybe we've just stopped paying attention. Maybe we've traded the mystery for religion, the supernatural for the predictable. But what if God never stopped speaking? What if he's still appearing, not in the ways we expect, but in the quiet, the ordinary, even the chaotic? Take the story of Elijah. After the fire from heaven, after the showdown with the prophets of Baal, he runs for his life, terrified, exhausted. And where does God meet him? Not in the wind, not in the earthquake, but in a gentle whisper. The divine doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's a voice so quiet you have to stop everything just to hear it. So here's the tension we're left with. If God is still revealing himself, why don't we see it? Is it because he's hidden, or because we're not looking the right way? What if the divine is all around us, woven into the fabric of our lives, and we've just been trained to explain it away? And that's where this gets dangerous. Because if we're right, if the divine is still active, still speaking, then everything changes. The Bible isn't just an ancient text. It's a living map to encounters that could happen today. But how, where, and who gets to experience them? But here's where the mystery deepens, because not everyone who encounters the divine walks away unchanged. Some are left with unshakable faith, while others are haunted by questions that never fully go away. Take Jacob, for example. After wrestling with God all night, he walks away with a limp, a permanent reminder that the divine doesn't just transform your spirit, it marks your body, your life. And that's the thing about these encounters. They're never clean, never easy. They leave you with scars, with a hunger for more, or sometimes with more questions than answers. Then there's Moses. He sees God face to face, or as close as any human can. And yet even he isn't allowed into the promised land. Why? What does that say about the nature of the divine? That it's not just about reward and punishment, but about something deeper, something we're still trying to grasp. And what about the people who never get their burning bush moment? The ones who cry out in the dark and hear nothing but silence? Is the divine playing favorites, or is there something else going on? A pattern we're missing? This is where the conflict really takes hold. Because if God is real, if he's still speaking, then why does it feel so random? Why do some people have life-altering encounters while others spend decades waiting for a sign that never comes? Is it about faith, purity, or is the divine moving in ways we can't even imagine, working behind the scenes in the ordinary, the mundane, even the painful? And that's the unsettling truth we're left with. The divine doesn't follow our rules. It doesn't fit neatly into our expectations. It's wild, untamed, and sometimes terrifying. So the real question isn't just how God reveals himself, but whether we're truly ready for what that means. Because once you open that door, there's no going back. Now we arrive at the heart of the mystery, the moment when all these threads tighten like a noose around our understanding. Picture this. You're standing in the shoes of the prophets, those broken men and women who carried divine fire in their bones. Jeremiah called as a boy, weeping over a nation that wouldn't listen. Ezekiel lying on his side for months, living out God's judgment in his flesh. These weren't just messengers. They were living sacrifices, their very bodies becoming signs and wonders. And here's what chills me. They didn't ask for this. The divine call came like a thief in the night, overturning their lives forever. What happens when God doesn't just speak but demands? When the encounter leaves you no choice but to obey, even when it costs everything. That's the razor's edge we're walking now, because this isn't about warm feelings or spiritual highs. It's about the terrifying weight of glory. Remember Saul on the road to Damascus? Blinded by light, knocked flat, his entire identity shattered in an instant. One moment he's persecuting Christians, the next he's being remade from the inside out. That's the pattern. The divine doesn't just visit, it wrecks you. It burns away everything false until all that's left is raw, trembling truth. But here's where the tension becomes unbearable. What if you're not ready? What if the call comes and you're like Jonah, running in the opposite direction? The storm rises, the dice roll, and suddenly you're in the belly of the beast, realizing too late that there's no escape from the hound of heaven. This is the crisis point, when the divine pursuit becomes inescapable, when every excuse burns away in the fire of that presence. The air is charged now, electric with possibility. Something is about to break, a revelation, a confrontation, an unveiling that will change everything. But not yet. Hold on. The darkest hour comes just before dawn, and what happens next will shake you to your core. Just when you think you understand the pattern, when the rhythm of divine encounters starts to make sense, that's when the ground gives way beneath you. Because here's the twist no one sees coming. What if the most profound encounters with the divine don't happen in the blaze of glory, but in the crushing silence of absence? Think of Job, righteous and broken, screaming into the void. Or Jesus himself in Gethsemane, sweating blood, begging for the cup to pass, and hearing only silence in return. This is the sacred paradox. Sometimes God feels closest when he seems farthest away. Now the stakes skyrocket. It's one thing to wrestle with an angel or hear a voice from heaven, but how do you hold on to faith when the heavens go quiet? When prayers hit the ceiling and bounce back unanswered? This is where most people walk away. This is where faith either dies or is reborn in fire. Because the dark night of the soul isn't the absence of God. It's the ultimate test of whether we're chasing experiences or the one behind them all. And here's where it gets even more unsettling. What if these wilderness moments, these agonizing silences, aren't abandonment at all, but the very process through which the divine reshapes us? Like gold refined in furnace heat, what if the times we feel most alone are when we're actually being prepared for something beyond our imagination? The Bible whispers this truth in shadows and types. Joseph in prison, David in caves, Paul in chains. Their greatest breakthroughs came on the other side of crushing despair. But, and here's the knife twist, what if you don't make it through? What if the silence breaks you instead? That's the unspoken terror lurking beneath every spiritual journey. Because not every story has a resurrection. Some prophets die in the desert. Some prayers go unanswered this side of eternity. And that unanswered question hangs heavy in the air now. When the divine hides his face, who will remain standing? The storm is gathering, the pieces are moving, and in the thickening darkness, one terrifying possibility emerges. Maybe we've had it backward all along. Maybe the burning bushes and angelic visits were never the main event, just training wheels for the real journey. The journey where faith means following when you can't see the road, where worship happens in the wreckage, where the presence you crave is found not in the miraculous, but in the marrow-deep choice to trust when every sense screams otherwise. Something is coming, a revelation that will rewrite all the rules. But not yet. Not yet. First comes the night. First comes the test. First comes the moment when everything you thought you knew about the divine shatters like glass. And when it does, will you be ready? The moment of revelation crashes in like thunder, not in the way anyone expected, but in the quietest, most ordinary way imaginable. After all the wrestling, all the waiting, all the desperate prayers flung heavenward, the divine answer comes, through a stranger's kindness, a whispered word at just the right moment, the sudden, inexplicable peace that floods your chest when all hope seems lost. This is the scandalous truth at the heart of it all. God doesn't just speak through burning bushes and angelic visitations. He speaks through cracked vessels, through broken people, through the messy, everyday moments we'd otherwise overlook. The climax isn't some dramatic parting of the heavens. It's the shocking realization that the divine has been here all along, hidden in plain sight. That hospital room where you felt an unexplainable presence, the random encounter that changed everything, the gut feeling that warned you just in time. These weren't coincidences. They were divine appointments all along. The veil between heaven and earth is thinner than we ever dared believe. But just when you think the mystery is solved, here comes the final twist. The encounters aren't over. They never were. The divine didn't stop speaking after the Bible was written. He simply changed his methods. Now he speaks through his people, through you, through me, through ordinary folks willing to listen and obey. That's the breathtaking revelation. We've been waiting for God to show up, while he's been waiting for us to become his hands and feet. The burning bush isn't on some distant mountain anymore. It's in the love we show, the truth we speak, the hope we carry to a broken world. The story doesn't end here. It begins anew. Because once your eyes are open to see the divine in the everyday, nothing looks the same again. Every moment becomes charged with meaning, every interaction pregnant with possibility. The question now isn't where is God, but what will you do now that you know he's everywhere? The choice is yours. Will you walk away unchanged? Or will you step into the greatest adventure of all, becoming part of the divine story still being written across human hearts today? As the dust settles and the pieces fall into place, we're left with a truth so simple, it's almost startling. The divine wasn't hiding from us. We just needed to learn how to see. The same God who spoke through prophets and walked in gardens is still speaking today, through the kindness of strangers, the wisdom of friends, and even the quiet voice inside that nudges us toward love. The miracles didn't stop. They just took on ordinary faces. The burning bushes didn't disappear. They're all around us if we have eyes to recognize them. Think about the people who've changed your life. The teacher who believed in you, the friend who stood by you in your darkest hour. the unexpected help that arrived right on time. What if those weren't just happy accidents? What if they were part of a much bigger story, one where we all get to play a role in revealing the divine to each other? That's the beautiful, humbling conclusion. We're not just observers of the sacred, we're participants. Every act of love, every moment of courage, every decision to choose hope becomes part of how God shows up in the world. So where does that leave us? Not at an ending, but at a beginning. The Bible stories we've studied weren't meant to stay locked in the past. They were meant to awaken us to what's possible here and now. The same power that raised Lazarus and parted the Red Sea is still at work, sometimes in dramatic ways, but more often in the quiet transformation of ordinary lives. The question isn't whether God is still speaking, it's whether we're ready to listen and to respond. As we close this chapter, remember this: you are standing on holy ground right now, not because of some mystical experience, but because the divine is in the business of showing up in your struggles, your questions, and your everyday moments. The story continues, and the next page is yours to write. Will it be one of faith, of love, of courageous trust? The choice, like the presence of God, has been here all along.